Have you ever wondered what it truly means to feel your wish fulfilled? Many people assume it means excitement, emotional intensity, or even overwhelming joy. As if manifestation requires you to force yourself into a high emotional state just to prove something is real. But Neville Goddard pointed to something far more subtle and far more powerful. He called it the feeling of naturalness. And when you understand this, you begin to understand the real secret behind creation itself. Because what you accept as natural becomes your reality. The misunderstanding about feeling it real. Most people misunderstand the instruction to feel it real. They try to manufacture emotion. They try to force excitement. They try to imagine what it would feel like to receive their desire in the future. But this creates distance. Because anything you are emotionally reaching for is something your mind is still saying you do not yet have. And so the mind stays trapped in wanting instead of having. Neville's teaching was never about emotional intensity. It was about identity. It was about state of being. What is the feeling of naturalness? Think about your everyday life. You do not walk around shocked that you exist. You do not feel emotional about your name, your hands, or your memories. You simply accept them. There is a quiet certainty in the background of your awareness. No effort, no excitement, no doubt, just knowing. That is naturalness. And Neville Goddard suggested that manifestation works in exactly the same way. The shift from wanting to having. There is a very specific inner shift that must happen. The shift from I want this to this is mine. Not in the future, not someday, but now, internally accepted as real. And this shift is so subtle that most people miss it. Because it does not feel dramatic. It feels quiet, still, normal. And yet, that is exactly what makes it powerful. Because your subconscious mind does not respond to effort. It responds to assumption. Why calm certainty creates reality. When something feels natural to you, you stop questioning it. You stop resisting it. You stop arguing with it internally. And in that state, there is no inner conflict. No yes but. No what if. Just acceptance. And where there is acceptance, there is alignment. Neville taught that imagination creates reality, but it is sustained assumption that solidifies it. And assumption is simply what feels normal to you. The mistake of emotional overload. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to feel more. More excitement. More intensity. More force. But emotional overload often signals the opposite of belief. It reveals that the mind is still trying to convince itself. True manifestation is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet. Almost ordinary. Like remembering something you already know. Living from the end. To apply this teaching, you do not reach for your desire. You live from the end. Meaning, you assume the state of the person who already has it. Not pretend. Not act. But assume inwardly. And ask yourself, what would feel completely normal if this were already true? Not exciting. Not surprising. Just normal. That is the key. If your desire were already fulfilled. Imagine your desire, whatever it is, success, love, money, opportunity, is already complete. How would you think tomorrow morning? You would not be shocked. You would not be trying to convince yourself. You would simply continue your life, with it already integrated. That is the feeling of naturalness. A quiet inner agreement. This is just who I am now. The inner repetition that matters. Neville often spoke about imagination and inner conversation. But what matters most is not repetition itself. It is the state you repeat from. From doubt, it feels forced. From naturalness, it feels effortless. Because the subconscious mind responds not to words alone, but to the feeling behind them. So the goal is not to force belief. It is to relax into acceptance. The moment it clicks, there comes a point where something shifts. You stop trying to make it real, and it simply feels obvious. Almost unremarkable. And without even noticing it happening, the desire no longer feels distant. It feels integrated, like it already belongs to you. Because internally, it does. Why this state works. Your mind is constantly organizing reality based on what feels normal. Not what you want. Not what you hope. But what you accept. Your assumptions become filters. And those filters shape your perception, your behavior, and your expectations, which eventually shape your experience. So when you assume something is natural, your mind begins to align everything around that assumption. You are not waiting. One of the deepest truths in Neville's teaching is this. You are not waiting for life to change. You are choosing the state you occupy. Right now. Not later. Not when conditions improve. But this very moment. And the real question becomes, what state am I living in now? Final reflection. So when you hear the phrase, feel your wish fulfilled, remember this. It is not emotional intensity. It is not forcing belief. It is naturalness. The quiet certainty that something is already yours. Like your name. Like your breath. Like your existence. No struggle. No doubt. Just knowing. And when you rest in that state, everything begins to move. Not because you are trying, but because you have already accepted it as real.